Welcome to Not Starving Artist, the podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Benson, money coach and equity actor. I am your financial cheerleader, here to help you build your financial confidence and have power over your money. The best part, no budgeting or bi-weekly paychecks required. I went from being a broke BFA grad having weekly panic attacks about money to a financially confident, wealth-building actor and business owner. Money gets to feel fun, simple, and sexy, and I am going to show you how. Welcome back to Not Starving Artist, the podcast, and I am so excited to talk about how to diagnose your biggest money leak. Did y'all know that there are more money leaks than just overspending? Because there are. Like I've said a million times before, spending is not the greatest evil, right? Spending is not the problem child in the money world all the time. There are actually 4 main leaks or problems, and you need to figure out which one of these is most prominent in your life right now to solve for that first. And spending is only one of the 4. Now, why we want to diagnose your biggest money leak first is because if you have a broken leg, we need to put a cast on that leg before we worry about your low potassium levels. Are both problems? Yes. But is one going to drastically hinder your life day to day until it's fixed versus the other? Yeah. We want to fix the broken leg first. But I see so many people go straight to the potassium levels because that's the thing that feels easiest to fix, or they've been told they have a potassium problem, so we need to bump that to the top of the urgency list, right? And ignoring the broken leg. Or what I also see is not even trying to diagnose the problem, being like, I've heard that a lot of people have low potassium levels, so I need to go and fix my potassium levels, versus like, let's go and get your blood work. Let's see if you have low potassium levels, and if not, then we don't really need to worry about that right now. What I do see is your leg is broken, so like, let's go fix that. So when we're talking about fixing your biggest money leak or your biggest money problem, what I see happen most of the time is that someone will look at their bank account, right, or what's happening in their money life and say, I don't like that. I want that to be better, more, whatever. I don't like what I'm seeing and I want it to be better. And they jump straight into either budgeting and cutting back or trying to make more money, okay? Now, with both of these solutions that get jumped to, there isn't a barometer of like, how much do I actually want or need to cut back? Or how much do I actually want or need to make more of, right? So there's these amorphous spend less, earn more that you're striving for without, 1, actually understanding the problem, or 2, actually understand your baseline starting point. Okay? Which is why when you download the budgeting spreadsheet and you've tried it and then you don't stick with it, or it doesn't really work how you thought, like, that's why. Or when you're like, oh my gosh, like I got this new job that pays me more, but then you don't actually see that being reflected in a growing savings account or having more money at your disposal. This is why, because you didn't figure out what the actual problem was. It's like throwing vitamin C pills at a broken leg, right? Or not even knowing you have a broken leg and eating vitamin C pills and being like, what's happening? I'm in pain. Why isn't this working? That's what's happening, okay? So why budgeting doesn't work, why going straight to cutting back doesn't work, is because cutting back without understanding why you need to cut back is not addressing the root cause, okay? So you can tell yourself to stop spending on certain things. You can download the budgeting spreadsheet. You can run all the numbers and the math of what you're currently making and then what you need to spend in order to be able to save a certain amount. You're gonna get a huge dopamine hit from filling out all that stuff, seeing the trajectory of where your money could go. But then what happens is as you're moving through your days and through your weeks, that spreadsheet goes out the window and those numbers go out the window because you didn't solve for the root cause of why the overspending actually happens. I was coaching a client last year, and one of the big things we were working on was she felt like she was spending way too much on eating out and like convenience food. And so she was like, I've tried to cut back and I've tried to tell myself and like run the numbers and like do less and cook more at home, but it's just not working. Like I'm still spending the exact same amount. And what we did was it's like, okay, let's go to every single moment where you eat out or where you spend more on convenience food than you thought, or when your groceries go to waste. And when we started really diving in, what happened was like her literal lifestyle, how she was living and what her job required of her, what her like living situation with her partner at that time, what that required was a lot of convenience food and eating out. It actually didn't make sense for her to have a lot of groceries and eat at home. And when we were talking about it, I asked, like, do you foresee that situation changing, right? She's in the artistic world, and so she lives in LA, so she's driving all over to all the different parts of LA, like getting to one part in LA to another can take 2 hours, which is wild, right? And then how she was living, I was like, do you foresee this changing? And she's like, no. And I'm like, okay. So then trying to cut back on eating out and convenience food spending is just going to cause shame and guilt. Because it's actually not a reality for you to be able to cut back on those things. What you actually need to cut back on is groceries. Actually eliminate your grocery budget because you're not going to eat that. You don't want to eat that. You physically cannot eat that. Okay, so we're going to cut that out. There you go. That's your cutting back. But then what we had to focus on, and I'll talk about this later when I talk about the money leaks, we had to focus on increasing her income, right? And not feeling guilt for what she felt was like responsible spending, which was like groceries and eating at home. But for her, that wasn't going to work. So do you see how cutting back without addressing the root cause is going to lead you nowhere? Because if you try and cut back without addressing the fact that your overspending is because you are having sleep issues and all of your blackout spending happens in the middle of the night when you wake up on Ambien and don't remember it the next morning, right? Maybe that's the cause. Or maybe it's because you have so much stress in your day-to-day life and spending is the self-soother that you turn to. Because maybe you used to turn to food and now you've been working on your health and so you can't turn to food anymore, but something else filled that hole and it's spending. But your spending didn't used to be a problem, but we trace it back to, oh, you eliminated this one problem in your life, which was emotional eating, but then it just got replaced by a different self-soother. So let's go to the root cause of why is the emotional need, what's the emotional need that's not being fulfilled? What do we need to sit with, right? We have to go deep with the root cause. That's why cutting back just for cutting back's sake and for the math to look nice doesn't work, okay? Budgeting also doesn't work because it's not a fun long-term solution. You will stop, okay? So diagnosing your biggest money leak is about finding long-term solutions for your financial wellness, not a quick hit. Right? This is why long-term health and lifestyle changes are better than Whole30 because no one does Whole30 for the rest of their life. So why are we continuing to promote it and do it? I don't know if anyone actually does Whole30 anymore. That was like in my college days, everyone was doing Whole30. But we need a long-term solution. And budgeting, I mean, be honest with yourself. Can you imagine yourself budgeting at 55 years old? I fucking can't. So I'm going to do a type of money management now that I can imagine myself doing at 55. Because if I can't, then it's not sustainable. Okay? And the other reason budgeting doesn't work is you might not even have a spending problem. It might not even be a spending problem. And you're trying to throw spending solutions at a problem that isn't even spending based, which we'll talk about with the other 3 money leaks that it could be. Okay. Now, the other part of this, right, when you like see what you don't like with your money and then you're like, okay, I'm either going to cut back or I'm just going to focus on making more. What happens a lot of the times is you focus on making more money, but you're not actually clear on how much more you actually want and need to be making. So anything that is more than what you're currently making is going to seem good and exciting. But then you're going to get to that place of more and you're going to realize that that raise at your restaurant job, right? Or that one extra client didn't actually move the needle like you needed it to in your bank accounts, right? Or it's just going to disappear into the abyss of your checking account because you didn't focus on the other money leaks that were actually the root of the problem, right? So I think of this as like the machine of your money, right? Your money flow, your money management system is a machine. If the machine isn't working, you could put as many peanuts in that machine. Let's say it's a peanut butter making machine. You put as many peanuts as you want in that machine. But if the machine isn't working and it comes out as gooey sludge that is not the right color, right? The machine is supposed to create peanut butter, but it's creating gooey sludge. Putting more peanuts in a machine that's not working is not going to now create peanut butter. It's just going to create more of the gooey sludge, okay? I mean, what's great about putting more peanuts in the machine is that when you do fix the machine, you're going to have a fuck ton of peanut butter. So we don't want to like wait to put more peanuts in the machine until you fix it. But you need to recognize that if goo's coming out of the machine, it's because the machine's broken, not because you don't have enough peanuts. All right. So that's why just chasing after more without getting clear on how much more do you want? Do you actually know how to manage your money right now? Without addressing all of those things, the more isn't going to have the effect that you want it to. Okay. So now let's talk about the actual 4 problems, the 4 money leaks that you have. You have one of these as your biggest money leak. First one is organization. Second is spending, overspending. 3 is income, not making enough. And 4 is your mindset, okay? Organization, spending, income, and mindset. Those are the 4 main money leaks. So I want you to think right now, before I actually go into each of them in examples, I want you to think about which one feels like your biggest problem right now, okay? Or rank them. If you had to rank yourself as this is my biggest money leak to my least biggest money leak, what would that ranking be? Okay? Have that in your brain. So now let's go through them. Organization, okay? Organization of your money is one of the most underutilized financial tools out there, all right? I will die on the hill of money organization. Money organization is what is going to make it clear to you how much you have to spend, how much more you need to be making, what do you have to put in savings and investments, can I afford this, can I not? It's going to simplify your money management to 1 hour a month. 1 hour a month. This is what organization does. So organization is the first place we start because the organization actually is going to clean up some of the problems that you think are spending and income, but that were actually just like you having a messy bank account system, okay? Or it's going to make it extremely clear where the actual big money leak lies, okay? So when your money is disorganized, you're going to be so confused on how much money you actually have to spend, how much money you actually have working for you. You're going to constantly be asking, can I afford this? What's coming up? Who knows? Like unexpected expenses are really going to feel like a big hit for you. That's what happens when your money's disorganized. Now, numbers can be deceiving, all right? So the way that I set up a cash flow system with my clients, it's called the money flow method because what it's doing is it's giving you an overall picture of how your money is flowing month to month to month. When you don't have a cash flow system set up and you have most of your money just sitting in the checking account, and when you feel like you have more than enough, you'll move some of that into savings. When you feel like you don't have enough in your checking, you'll move some from savings. And this is all based on vibes, what feels like a lot and what feels like not a lot, okay? But what happens when you do that is that when you go to make money decisions, you're looking at a snapshot of your checking and your savings, and you're asking yourself, can I afford this? Do I have the money in the bank for it? But it's just these two, again, amorphous blobs of money that don't really have any real reasoning or focus on them, okay? So what this is like, I'm going to use a water ocean metaphor because we're talking about the money flow, right? Like money is meant to flow. When you're looking at just a checking and a savings account, that's just based on vibes, how you move money between the two, you're looking at like, when you pull up the bank account, you're either going to see it at high tide or you're going to see it at low tide, okay? So if you had no understanding of how the ocean works, if you just like walked onto the beach and it's high tide, you're going to be like, wow, that's a lot of water. Wow, that water's real close, huh? Cool, right? And you're going to make your decision about, how much beach equipment you can bring and fit on the beach between like the pier and where the water goes out. You're going to base that decision on what you saw at high tide. But then you're going to come back at low tide and be like, wait, this is way more beach area than I thought. Wait, oh my God, I could have brought so much more, right? Or vice versa. So that's what's happening. You're like taking a snapshot of high tide or low tide without really understanding how the ocean is flowing in and out throughout the days, throughout the months, right? When you are working with a cash flow system that you manage once a month, that is flowing your money in like chunks, right? Where you are setting it up to take care of you for the month ahead, and then it's draining, and then you're going to refill it at the top of the next month, and then it's draining, and then you're going to refill it at the top of next month. And when you have extra money, you're going to put it into savings, investments, debt payoff, other things. When you're managing your money that way, it's like you have a live stream camera on the ocean, the high tide and the low tide. You're getting the full picture of how the ocean is ebbing and flowing. So we can see overall, is the ocean, oh, this is getting sad because of global warming. Overall, is the ocean coming closer or is it receding? Because we can't base that knowledge and get a clear picture if we're just taking the snapshot of high tide or the snapshot of low tide or anything in between. You're seeing the live stream over and over and over. Okay, so this is how you can make clear money decisions when your money is organized in this way, because you're basing it on the overall picture of your money rather than what's happening on a random Tuesday when like 2 paychecks have hit and 1 bill just came out, right? It's the overall monthly view. Organization is also going to make it really clear how much extra money you have or how much of a deficit you're in, right? So it's going to make it so clear if you are overspending or under earning. Or if you've got plenty of surplus, right? You can make decisions and have bank accounts set up where they're automated, bills aren't forgotten. You see how much you have to put into savings, into investments. So organization is going to clear up what you might think is a spending problem. So for example, I had a client where this was her, right? She had a debt that she was trying to pay off, a big chunk of credit card debt. And she had just got this new job where she was earning a lot more, but she was like, I feel like the needle isn't moving. Like, how am I earning more and I still am in the exact same financial situation? So all we did was implement a personalized cash flow system for her and make some decisions about how much money she wanted to spend each month overall, right? We put that into a spending account for her. We automated her debt payoff plan so she could see the end date of her debt payoff plan in the future. That was automated. She had savings automated, right? Because she was on a biweekly paycheck. And so what we did then is we let that run for her for a month. And so she was now saving more, consistently paying off her debt, and spending how she wanted to. Right? Where before she was just spending how she wanted to and she wasn't able to save and pay off her debt. But then at the end of that first month, she was like, wait, Brooke, why do I feel rich? Like, why do I feel like I'm not being restricted at all with my spending? And how am I also saving and paying off debt? Right, because of the organization. She thought she had a spending problem, but really it was the organization of it that made it feel like her money was going places that it wasn't supposed to go or that she didn't like going. And then we also figured out a root cause of her emotional spending, right? And figured out where that was coming from. So the urges she was having to emotionally spend, we started to disseminate, okay? So that's organization. That's why we always start with organization, because organization will clean up any false problems. These are like false positives on any testing you get at like a doctor's office. Organization is going to weed out the false positives. Okay, so now let's move on to spending. Sometimes overspending is a symptom of organization, which is why we do that first. So as I'm tying these two together here, I want to share with you Parkinson's law, right? Parkinson's law is that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. Right? This is that thing that was going around a while ago where it's like, if you give yourself 2 weeks to do a task, it'll take you 2 weeks. If you give yourself 2 hours to do a task, it'll take you 2 hours. It's because of Parkinson's law. We like expand our capacity based on the time that it's given. This is like, there was that like, again, this thing that was going around where cats filling up like containers just like fully to the brim. Like when liquids fill the container that they're in, when cats fully fill the container that they're in, this is what happens. So when your money isn't organized, when all of it is just dropping into your one checking account, your spending and your money is just going to expand into the space you've given, which is like limitless, right? It's the amount that's in your checking account is what you have to spend, right? Without any organization or flow. So when I say like money can easily disappear into the abyss of your checking account, that's what I'm talking about. When you don't have any guardrails around anything, your money and your spending is just going to expand into that. So why we organize first is because sometimes just putting the container there doesn't feel like restriction. It's just now like cutting the fat and stuff that didn't actually need to get spent and you don't care about, right? So that's why we do that first. It's like a controlled burn too. When we're thinking about like, oh God, it's just so hard to talk about anything with the state of the world these days, right? With climate change, right? Again, but controlled burns to help prevent huge forest fires. It's like burning and having a very clear perimeter of what you want to burn and use, rather than it just like being a free for all and going to all the places it wants to go. All right, we're moving on. That's getting too sad. So now, when we're talking about overspending, when you organize your money, it's going to be very clear if you're in a deficit, which means what's going out is more than what's coming in. Now, with my business owners and with my freelancers, if your income is fluctuating, that's totally fine, because we're taking stock of what your money is doing over the course of a quarter, over the course of an entire year. My one-on-one coaching packages start at 3 months. That's the duration of one container, because I want to see your money over the course of an entire quarter so we can get clear on what's happening through your money as it fluctuates, all right? So when we're looking at your now organized money, it'll be very clear if you are overspending or if money is going out that you don't actually love. We do a financial audit, right? Where we're going to go through all of your spending. This is like getting financially naked. Go through all of your spending and figure out, like, are you actually using these subscriptions? That's like the first one. Everyone has subscriptions they're not using that they can just eliminate and it feels like nothing. But then, like, how much money are you spending on certain things? Are there things you're spending money on that are because of other reasons? Emotional, self-soothing, numbing, blacking out, whatever. The new version of keeping up with the Joneses, which is like aesthetics and Pinterest, right? We're going to audit all of that to see how much of this is actually spending you need and want, and how much of it is just excess, right? Just like the stuff that's clinging on because you're not clear about it. So I had a client. Now, the overspending usually is with my clients who are making more money than they did before, and they're like, why are the numbers in the bank not moving? It's usually organization or overspending, right? Because they're making more, so they know it's not an income problem, because now the dollars aren't moving in the bank account even though they're making more. So I have a client who he was making a lot more, right? He had a business, he was making a lot more there, and then he got a new job where he was making a lot more there. And so what was happening is he was finding himself continually in debt, right? Or continually needing to utilize the money in his savings account. And so what we were doing is we were looking through and being like, oh, we're actually seeing, like, if we look at your numbers, what it costs to live as you month to month to month, how does that number feel? And he was like, yeah, that feels like a lot. Like, I feel like I don't need to be spending that much every single month. Great. So we looked through and we were like, what feels like your non-negotiables? And everyone's non-negotiables are going to be different, right? I had a client whose non-negotiables were K-pop concerts. I had a client whose non-negotiable was getting her nails done. This client was his haircuts. I mean, for me, one of my non-negotiables is getting coffee in my local coffee shop whenever the fuck I want, right? We all have different kinds of non-negotiables. So what are your non-negotiables, and what are the things that like don't feel like they're contributing to the core values of your life and what you want, okay? It's really easy to spend money about a problem versus sitting in the feelings and what's really causing the problem and then having to do the thing that's usually not a money solution, right? I think for a lot of people, money is being spent to try and solve a problem of lack of community. That's what I'm seeing with a lot of my clients. That's what I noticed with myself too, that a lot of the things I felt like were problems was lack of community in the past year. Okay. So I just want to put that out there. That's not always the case, but I've seen that trend recently, and that we all just need to tap back into real community rather than trying to create this perfectly aesthetic home with the vision of people coming over and enjoying the perfectly aesthetic home versus just sending out a text to your friends and saying, come over, my apartment's messy, but I want to feed you wine, right? So that's spending problem. Now let's move on to an income problem. Okay. If you have money problems or a money leak, or you're like, I don't like what I see with my bank account, most people attribute it to spending. Those old school money gurus always attribute it to spending. Always say you need a budget. always say, stop eating out. What are you doing paying for things that are not essential if you have money problems? All right. Here's the thing though. A money leak that is an income problem is actually so much more prevalent today than it ever was before, okay? Because the cost of living crisis, minimum wage not moving, inflation, the economy, there are so many things like the millennial generation and younger. I'm not saying older generations were immune to this, but especially the millennial generation and younger. Not making enough is a very strong money leak, okay, that a lot of people are facing. Now, how do you get clear if you have an income problem or not? The reason that this is the third thing on the list is because we look at the organization first, and then we look at the spending. While we are looking at the spending, it's going to be very clear if there is a ton of extraneous stuff that doesn't need to be spent on, or if it's like pretty much all like just like food, rent and bills, and like a couple of meals out, maybe a trip a couple of times a year, getting some fun drinks out with a friend every once in a while, going to a show every month, right? If that's the spending that we are seeing in when we do our financial audit together, that tells me that you have an income problem. If you don't like the amount of surplus that you have, or if you're in a deficit, okay? So if that's the case, then it's an income problem. I had a client who was beating herself up over the fact that she had like gone out one time and got 2 cocktails when she was only planning on buying 1. Okay. And these cocktails were like $13. So she was like, I was only planning on buying 1 and I spent 2. And now I'm like pushed to the limit with my flex money. And I'm like, okay, if $13 is pushing you to the limit with your flex money, it's an income problem. That is not a spending problem. I don't want to cut you to the place of having to micromanage every dollar like that and not being able to randomly say yes to a night out or to even a trip, right? Or to a show, right? Like I literally, right as I was recording this podcast, I just got a text from a friend saying like, hey, there's tickets to this show if you want to get these things, like my company's producing it, da-da-da. So I'm going to go buy that $20 ticket because I'm excited to go, right? I want you to have wiggle room to be able to do stuff like that. And if you don't have wiggle room, then that means it's an income problem. Okay. So this specific client, what we realized was that she was actually really good at spending. She was so good at spending, but because of all of the narratives around spending that she was hearing from the money space and that she grew up with, she automatically was like, I'm an overspender because I like to go out to eat and because I like a Lululemon legging. No, you don't have a spending problem. You have an income problem. Because I'm going to tell you something right now. If you live in New York City or LA and you make less than $30 an hour, you have an income problem, not a spending problem. You might also have a spending problem, but your spending is probably going to be more along potassium levels and your broken leg is the income. Okay? Now again, there are systemic issues with the minimum wage not being raised, with the cost of living growing to a place that what people earn cannot match and cannot live on their own and cannot just work one job to be able to make that a thing. Like economically, systemically, that is the problem. Okay? So we can acknowledge that that's not your fault. And now, in your personal life, in your personal finances, what do you desire out of your financial life? If you used to be able to make ends meet and feel good with the, catering job that you worked, or the retail job that you worked, or the side hustle you were doing, or the, office job that gave you flexibility but pays you $40,000 a year, if that job used to make ends meet and now it doesn't, it's okay that you need to find something else and move on. All right? The income problem is going to be very clear once you focus on organization and spending and we clear those off the list, right? Because it's going to show you not only what you're like currently working with, we're going to clear on your current numbers, but then when you're looking for a new job or you're wanting to get more clients or increase your capacity in your business or get a raise or go into a new career path, you need to figure out the income level that's actually going to move the needle. So for this client, it was like, oh, we actually need to like triple your income in order to make ends meet for you, to give you a little bit of wiggle room with your spending, and then be also be able to save and invest and pay off the debt that she was carrying, yeah, you need to triple your income. Now, then there were a lot of thoughts that came with what it would take for her to triple her income, right? And I am happy to report she now has a job that is flexible and pays her more. She negotiated a pay raise for herself during those negotiations because of the work we did together. And I'm so freaking proud of her. But we only got there because we realized it was an income problem, not a spending problem. And now that her money's organized, because we solved for that as well, the new money she's making is able to flow through that cash flow system and help her hit her money goals with much more ease, okay? So now this moves us into our fourth money leak that you could have, which is mindset, okay? Like I said, she was having thoughts about the income she was making and what it would take to make more money. Okay, so that's a mindset issue. Now, mindset leaks are going to come up as you are focusing on if your biggest money leak is organization or overspending or lower income. You're gonna have mindset stuff pop up. So mindset is gonna bleed into everything. But you might have your biggest money leak as a mindset problem. Now, this is for my clients who come to me who are high earners, who have surplus, who are actually underspending, which becomes very clear when we do their cash flow system and their financial audit, but still feel crazy anxious about money. Their biggest money leak is mindset, okay? One, everyone has a mindset money leak, okay? But if your biggest mindset or your biggest money leak is mindset, those are some of the symptoms. So I had a client, I had two clients. I'm going to talk about one first and then the other. I had a client who her business was thriving, okay? Her business was thriving, but she felt like she was disorganized and she felt like she didn't know how to make confident money decisions, okay? So one of the first things as we were doing her financial audit, she actually, when she was talking about her business, how much her business earned and what her business was worth, she told me, I think it was 1.2 million or something. And it wasn't until later on in the call when she threw out a number that was over 2 million. I was like, wait. Earlier you said 1 million, and she didn't use the word profit. She used the word revenue, or like what the business was worth. And then it comes out that it was actually a $2 million business. She just profited 1 million. And I was like, okay, so the fact, and she like got a little bit nervous or like didn't really want to lean into that $2 million number and really dive into it. And I'm like, okay, so we've discovered a mindset issue. Your brain does not believe that you own a $2 million business because you're only allowing yourself to see the money that you profit, which is great. We want to be clear on those two different numbers. But what that then led us into was an identity issue, a mindset issue of not fully believing that she had created the financial success that she did. She still saw herself as the version of her 5 years ago who was in debt and stressed and couldn't afford certain things that she really, really wanted. Okay, so then we found it was a core mindset issue that was actually causing the anxiety because she couldn't actually fully hold space for the business and the financial wealth that she had created. We also attacked some of her underspending problems, right? Where it was like, you actually need to go make a joy purchase. Go buy yourself some nice jewelry. Go buy yourself that new car. Go buy yourself, right? And some of that feels counterintuitive to traditional money advice. But what underspending and under-earning shows me is that you're not leaning into the wealth that you've created. Okay? The anxiety is coming from, I need to white knuckle it in case everything goes away at any moment because I don't believe that I'm actually in control. I had another client who came to me and same thing. She was, she made $500K in our first year working together, but she was hovering at multiple six figures when we started. And what was happening was she was like, I now have all of this money and I'm afraid I'm going to fuck it up. I'm so terrified I'm going to fuck it up. And that was the mindset issue. So we created her money flow. We got her organized, right? That's always the first thing we do to show her that like, yes, you have surplus. Here's actually how much surplus you have and where do you want to funnel it, right? Let's fully fund your solo 401k and you still have money left over. What do you want to do with it? So then we got to the point where she was able to dream bigger and start like buying property and taking on projects she was excited about. She ended up starting another version of her business, another branch of her business. So with this, it wasn't a spending problem. It wasn't an income problem. We organized her money, but it wasn't really an organization problem. Her money like perfectly went into the machine. We set it up and she was good to go after the first month or two. So what we realized was it was a mindset problem of not believing that she as an artist could be experiencing the kind of money that she was experiencing now, and actually allowing herself to enjoy her own money rather than just using it to support other people. Because she had used her money to support other people over and over and over and over again. But there was such a lack of her being able to utilize her money for herself, which then was actually capping her at a certain income level rather than expanding her. Okay, so that's the fourth money leak that it could be, is a mindset problem. Now, the mindset money leak is not reserved just for high earners who have surplus. I'm using those as examples because those clients, it was very clear that that was the very first money leak. Now, again, everyone has this money leak. And when we're talking about like potassium levels versus broken leg, mindset is more like a sedentary versus an active lifestyle. Okay, so your mindset leak is the mindset problems that you have, the mindset blocks that you have, the identity that you're carrying. That's like you living a sedentary lifestyle. Now, that's not going to hurt you right now, day to day, in this moment, at this exact minute. But over the course of time, it will. Right? This is getting really morbid too, right? It's like a sedentary lifestyle will kill you at some point. But this is like a sedentary lifestyle. It is very, very important. But if you have a broken leg, i.e. an organization problem, a spending problem, or an income problem, we need to fix your broken leg so that you can actually move out of a sedentary lifestyle. So you can actually start taking walks. And it's going to be small. You're going to take a 5-minute walk in the morning, right? And then you're going to work up to a 20-minute walk. And then you're going to work up to a certain amount of steps a day. And then you're going to add in workouts, right? But it has to be a stair-step situation. But again, you have to focus on the broken leg first. So the other thing I want to say here is that all of these leaks, if you have a business that is separate from you and your personal money, you need to do this for your business and then do it for your personal life. So you might have an income problem in your business, but a spending problem in your personal life. Or you might have an income problem in your personal life, i.e. not paying yourself enough from your business to be able to support yourself, but you have a spending problem or an organization problem in your business. I had a client who this was her exact case. She felt like in her personal life, she was so broke. She felt like she didn't really have a lot of money. She was feeling a lot of scarcity in how she was able to spend in her personal life. In her business, she didn't have a system to organize her money to even understand how much she could pay herself every single month because she was so scared of the fluctuation. So we implemented an organization, a cash flow system inside of her business to be able to consistently pay herself, not just enough to live, but be able to have surplus in her personal life so she could also save and invest. So it was an organization problem in her business, and then she paid herself more, and the income problem in her personal life went away. Okay. I had a client who it was actually a combination of spending and income in her business. And then in her personal life, it was spending and organization. So it was actually a combination of two money leaks at the same time. So in her business, she realized she had more team members than she needed. There were more expenses going out than she needed. But also, her income was cutting it too close to her monthly expenses than she would like, right? She didn't have enough surplus to be comfortable. So she cut her expenses while she increased her income to increase her surplus. Then when she was paying herself in her personal life, she actually realized she didn't need as big of an owner's draw as she was giving herself. She didn't need as much income in her personal life because then she was also leaking money because she didn't have her personal money organized. There were expenses that were going on business credit cards that were actually for personal. Her and her husband were figuring out a way to spend money where they both had eyes on it. So we cleaned up the organization, decided how much she actually needed to live and wanted to spend. And then she realized she didn't need to pay herself as much from her business, right? And now she's clear on what they need to spend month to month to month. So that's how it works when you have a business and you have personal finances. They're two separate things. So you need to diagnose the money leak for your business and for your personal. And again, it can be a combination of the two. In one-on-one coaching, if you are in one-on-one money mentorship with me, how we diagnose your money leak, we go through this process. In our very first call together, we draw out your financial ecosystem. So I get on my tablet and we literally draw like boxes for your bank accounts. We look at all the numbers. We look at your credit cards, what debt amounts you have, if any. We look at your 401k or your IRA or any investment accounts you have. We talk about how money flows between each of them, what you're spending and where. We look through all of that. So we create what looks like a rainforest ecosystem from a science textbook. And we look at that and we get clear on how we need to organize it. Because there's probably going to be a lot of confusion and you're going to see immediate money leaks from the organization. Almost everyone has money leaks in an organization. So we're going to clean that up to start. This is where the personalized money flow comes into play. I work with each of my clients to implement a cash flow system that automates your money. So all of your bills are paid on time. You never have to worry about it and you don't have to worry about overdrafting. You know exactly what you want and desire to spend each month and it's sectioned off, and we give you a financial CEO checklist of how to manage it in 1 hour a month. Okay? So that happens in our first 2 calls together. So we clean up your organization. Once we have that down, again, the organization is going to make it very clear where your next biggest money leak lies. Is it spending? Is it income if you don't have a surplus? So then we go through those. We do a financial audit of your spending. Now, again, tracking your spending line by line is a tool that we use to diagnose a problem. It is not a lifestyle. It is not something I want you to do forever and ever, amen. It is not sustainable. That is monotonous, and it's going to cause you to white knuckle, especially if you have anxiety, OCD, ADHD. This is not a method for you. We use it as a tool to see just what's happening under the hood. Okay, so we do a financial audit to see, is there a spending problem? If yes, then we focus on solving that. If no, but you don't have a surplus that you like, if you don't have extra money to be able to pay off debt, save, and invest, great, now we're going to look at your income. We're going to see if you have an income problem, okay? If your income barely covers your expenses, right, then that's an income problem. So we're going to look at the options that there are to increase your income, what mindset blocks you have about your income, what you desire to be making. We're going to get clear on your goals, right? How much do you want to save? How much do you want to invest? How much debt do you have to pay off? And then what does that require from an income, right? So we're going to get clear on that. So then when you're actually looking for higher income or a new job or wanting to increase your client load or the services you provide or launch a new product, you know exactly what your benchmarks are of what you need to be making. And then once we go through all of those, again, mindset stuff will start to come up and I will start taking notes, right? Of like, okay, once we get that organized, this is so funny with my clients in that first meeting when we are doing your ecosystem. As we're going through your ecosystem, I have another page and I'm writing down the mindset stuff that I hear, the quotes that's coming up. Because I know in 3 weeks' time when your organization is clean, and you're like, wait, but why do I still feel anxious? I will pull that up and be like, remember when we said this? This is what's happening. Let's dive into this here, right? So we're clocking mindset leaks from the get-go, but we're focusing on the tactical stuff first so that you can start to see tangible differences in your bank accounts as we work on the mindset stuff. And then if all of the organization, the spending, the income, if it all looks good, you have surplus, you're feeling good, then we start to work on the mindset. We go straight in. Are you dreaming big enough? Do you have clear visions for where you want to go and how you want to use your money? Where is your anxiety coming from? A lot of this then starts to touch stuff related to family and friends and community, right? Conversations that might need to have. There's usually something that is trying to be filled with like stressing about money. When we move the money stress away out of it, what comes up? What's coming from that hole, right? From that blank space that maybe you've been avoiding or not wanting to think about. There's some worthiness stuff that comes up. So we dive into all of that. So then we start focusing on the mindset stuff. So a lot of my clients who continue to re-sign, so we start with a 3-month package. The first 3 months is a lot of that tactical, let's get you organized, let's focus on your spending, let's focus on your income. And then the mindset stuff starts to come into play. So when you're organized and then continuing on the plan that we've set out, mindset stuff continues to pop up. And I don't like the phrase new levels, new devils, but it's like new versions of the same mindset wounds continue to come up and grow with you as you're up leveling. So my clients who continue to re-sign time after time, yes, sometimes a tactical thing will come up where they like move cities and their cost of living changed, or they switch their business model, or, they got this big gig and now they don't know where to put that money. Yes, those things come up, but a lot of it is continuing to anchor into their identity and continuing to work on their money mindset so that the money in their bank accounts can continue to grow. Okay, so if you're interested in working with me one-on-one, if you'd like to join my money mentorship, I'm now enrolling for 2025. So you can book a sales call. The link is in the show notes. It's in my bio. You can find it on my website at notstarvingartist.com. In the first 2 calls together, this is what we're doing. We're diagnosing your biggest money leak so that we can jump right into solving it and getting numbers in your bank account that you actually like, okay? Why we diagnose this right away is so that in your first 3 months, you can actually see movement towards the goal that you want. Now, depending on where you're at, this goal could look different for you. This is why it's one-on-one. This is why it's private coaching. This is why it's personalized to each person. Because for some of you, it might be getting 3 months ahead on bills in your personal life. For some of you, it might be getting 3 months ahead on bills as a business buffer in your business ecosystem. For some of you, it might be creating a debt payoff plan that you can actually see the end date of. You see the light at the end of the tunnel because it is simple and sustainable, and you actually have money that is able to consistently go towards it. For some of you, it might be paying off a tax bill or having a tax plan, having tax savings so that the tax season never feels stressful for you ever again. For some of you, it might be doubling the amount that you're able to invest in your retirement accounts, or if you've maxed out your retirement accounts. Like I had a client who started investing in property, buying property, or maybe it's your brokerage account, or maybe it's funneling it towards other causes you care about, or maybe it's investing your first ever $5 in a brand new retirement account. There are so many different goals that you could have, right, when it comes to your financial ecosystem. But in order to even create clear goals, I'm going to also say another one that I've worked a lot with on clients is moving. Right? Moving to a better apartment, moving to a new city. I've worked with a lot of people who are moving to New York or moving to LA, especially after college, or wanting to live on your own, right? Moving expenses, we can have that as a goal. We need to diagnose your biggest money leak and get clear on what's holding you back from hitting those goals so that we can get clear on what those actually are and then actually make them a reality. So we're not just throwing spaghetti at the wall, testing different things, like being like, yeah, cut back spending, but then your savings bucket for your moving fund still stays empty. Like we actually want that to fill up, which requires us to get clear on what your actual biggest money leak is. Okay, have a great week, everyone. Take some breaths, take some naps, get yourself a treat, and I will see you all next week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Come join me on Instagram for more on how to build a simple, sexy relationship with your money. My Instagram handle is @notstarvingartists. And if you want to dive deeper with me, head to the show notes to learn more about one-on-one coaching. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend that you want to get rich with.